It's Monday, August 5th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On today's show, we get our last updates from Beacon Hill until September from Senator Cyr and Representative Crocker. And we get a tick smart with Larry Daxus, the Barnstable County entomologist. Now for a look at municipal and legislative notes. Barnstable residents, become involved in your town's government. Apply for a position on a board, committee, or commission. The town of Barnstable has over 40 boards, committees, and commissions with approximately 291 seats. Our citizen participation is exemplary, and the town council appreciates each and every member who serves. If you are a resident of Barnstable and are interested, please consider submitting an application. For a more detailed description and responsibilities of the committees, please contact the town council office at 508-862-4738. Senator Julian Cyr joins us in studio for a State House update, a signed budget, funds for the Cape and Islands, and a new task force for drinking water quality. Well, the session has ended on Beacon Hill, and big news from Julian Cyr. Welcome.
Paula, good to be with you. Happy August.
Happy August. This is just crazy that the summer is just blowing really quick, but we all know that real summer for Cape Codders begins in September anyways.
It does. It does. I can't wait. But this has been a summer for the record books already, and we're just in August. And you know, certainly with the extreme weather we've had here in Barnstable, across Barnstable, and Yarmouth, Dennis, Harwich, and Chatham, the 3 tornadoes we had. You know, when I got into this business, you know, you're always worried about you know, hurricanes and nor'easters. We're not used to tornadoes here, and the devastation was really severe. I mean, you know, something that I haven't, you know, in the 2 square miles in Harwich and the pockets of in Osterville and Hyannis, South Yarmouth, Dennis, you know, looks very much like a hurricane. What was remarkable is how quickly we bounced back. You know, when I saw this devastation and was out there, and the governor came down, and we had Senator Markey and a whole host of folks, you know, didn't expect that, you know, this happened on a Tuesday, that it would be back to full power, you know, by Friday morning. You know, so a real tremendous response. I think the piece that I continue to be concerned about is the lost business. You know, small businesses, especially restaurants, folks in food service, you know, you lost power for a few days. That means your walk-in, you know, your walk-in failed. You know, you probably lost a lot of product that you had in inventory. So those losses plus the closed business. So thrilled, you know, we've been working with hand in glove with the administration, with the whole delegation to make sure we respond. The Mass Capital Growth Corporation actually has issued $1 million in a loan program to small businesses. We'll have more information on my website about that. You know, but really kind of impressed how we were able to really sort of rally and get open back for business. But I think this does show, we really need to get serious about climate resiliency. Climate disruption is here. Every Cape Codder knows that. You live that. And so I'm really eager, I think, this fall when we come back from the session to take up some climate resiliency legislation. The House has taken action. I'd like to see the Senate taking action. The House did $1 billion over 10 years. I'd like to see us do $2 billion over 10 years. You know, when you open up, I was reading the New York Times, and when Barnstable is listed as the top 10, you know, locations in the country for costs related to climate preparedness and resiliency and the effects of climate disruption, you know, that's big. So we've got lots of work to do, but really relieved that there were no serious injuries with the tornadoes. You know, our municipalities and our first responders and DPW workers and National Guard and you know, the utility and many others, you know, neighbors just kind of getting out the chainsaw and helping to clear roads was pretty remarkable. But glad we're back in business.
Back in business, and you know, having been through Hurricane Bob in '91, you know,
Me too.
Looking at that devastation, you know, I had visions of a week or 2 without power in certain areas of the Cape, and you know, good to see Eversource with their tree trimming has worked a little bit. It wasn't as many power lines, just in that small area there, and then obviously we're Cape Cod strong.
Yeah, and Eversource had over 700 utility crews on the ground.
Yes.
Which is remarkable, but you know, I remember, Bob, we were out of power in Truro for 10 days.
Yeah.
But of course, I was a little kid, so at the time I thought all the trees down were fun. But much to the chagrin of my poor parents. We're trying to run a restaurant and no water and all that stuff. But glad everyone's all right and we are Cape Cod strong.
Excellent. And the budget seemed to have passed and gotten through all of its
all the hurdles. It's signed into law, and there are some pretty big accomplishments in this budget.
Right.
I wasn't happy that it was late. This is a bad habit we've gotten into beyond Beacon Hill. Yeah. But what's in the budget is really powerful, and I was really proud. All total in the budget, I was able to deliver $7.37 million in resources, both statewide and here on the Cape. $750,000 of that is here on Cape Cod. For instance, $45,000 to the Barnstable Police Department to continue the work that the Community Impact Unit is doing around addressing the homeless population here, especially those really chronically homeless folks that we can't get into services. We first did the program last year, and they helped about 40 homeless individuals. 20 of those individuals, so about half, actually got connected into services, which is kind of a big deal. So proud of that. There's a lot more in there. And then more broadly, some pretty important statewide initiatives, mostly focused on the opioid epidemic, and also focused on mental health. And so with the opioid epidemic, I filed an amendment which was adopted in the Senate. We got it for the final budget. It's $5 million in new dollars, all for harm reduction strategies, right? So everything we can do to help keep people alive and keep people safe. Those are resources that we're going to see here in Hyannis. We'll see it across the Cape. But that's really something I think when we look at, the more we learn about, the more we grapple with this epidemic, keeping people alive and safe is what we need to do. And so, access to Narcan, syringe access, keeping people safe. These are pretty important pieces. Looking at fentanyl test strips and fentanyl testing. So if you're looking at the drug supply, unfortunately, more and more fentanyl's in everything, which is terrifying.
Right.
And so this is a pretty big effort from the state and something I'm really proud to have been a part of. And then also filed $1 million to increase funding to the Department of Mental Health around their housing voucher program. And with this $1 million addition, they're basically going to eliminate their wait list for housing.
Wow.
So 80 people are going to get housing. These are some of the most vulnerable, mentally ill, challenged folks in the state. So really proud to have been part of that, and lots of good things in this budget, and so just glad it's done, and glad it's signed into law, and looking forward to seeing those dollars get to work in our community.
Right. So you talk about, there's lots of things in that budget, but there's one reoccurring theme throughout Cape Cod, which is water quality.
Yep.
Whether it's nitrogen loading in our embayments or emerging contaminants of concern. What's going on with that right now?
So there's a few pieces. One is implementation of the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund. This was landmark legislation that we passed last session. The entire delegation got behind this, creating a funding mechanism to implement what's called the 208 plan. So we got a $4 billion wastewater problem on Cape Cod. And through this program, the state's going to pitch in $1 billion, and we're funding that through occupancy, both on short-term rentals and also on traditional occupancy. The other piece we got to look at is around drinking water, and folks here in Barnstable and Hyannis specifically know a lot about contaminants and contaminants of concern. One of those being PFAS and PFOAs. These are the, emerging contaminants associated with actually a whole host of consumer products. Actually, a lot of adhesives that you use in your home actually have PFAS in them.
Teflon,
Yep.
wrappers for your hamburger.
Yep. Also, firefighting foam.
Right.
And so, as folks know, here in Hyannis, this has been a huge concern. I filed a bill along with my colleague, Representative Kate Hogan, who represents Stowe, so like a north-central community of the state, who's also struggling with PFAS, to create a task force to move swiftly to get the state to really get our handle on this. What communities are impacted? What's the cost? How do we begin to remediate this? The town of Barnstable and the Hyannis Water District has spent, millions and going on tens of millions on this problem. And so I really think the state should be doing its part. So proud to file the bill, hoping to see it advance out of committee and something we can get to work on soon so the task force can be convened, we can get some recommendations and move forward on this issue. But water is you know, when you live on a peninsula, that's essentially a sand deposit from glaciers.
Right.
You know, water's key to how we make our lives here, to how we make our living here, and making sure our drinking water is safe and is a quality water supply is really critical.
Really is. So you're back on terra firma here on Cape Cod for
Yeah,
a month or so?
The goal is I hopefully don't have to go over the bridge at least for a month because we're on
Right.
recess. So it's a beautiful time to be here, and just looking forward to, you know, like all Cape Codders, right? Enjoying it, trying to get to the beach, avoiding the traffic,
Right.
and looking forward to when summer really starts in September.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Paula. Always a pleasure.
Take care. Representative Will Crocker has an update from Beacon Hill. Progress on Vineyard Win, Nero's Bill, and several programs for the town of Barnstable made it into the budget. Representative Will Crocker meets us here in the studio to talk about the end of the session. You're on break.
Yep, we're on break for the month of August, and we'll be back in September. And as usual, things are absolutely last minute. We were there until a little after midnight on the 31st.
Oh my goodness. But the budget's gone to the governor and it's been signed.
It's been signed by the governor, and there's some really good things in it for us in terms of the things that I had advocated for, which were the community service officers, the $20,400 for the community service officers. That made it through the budget process. The $25,000 for the youth summit for next year until they can find their new funding partner on that. That made it through the budget. Plus, there's a couple of other things that are a benefit for the people in the town of Barnstable. It's the Cape Cod Veterans Outreach Association. There's $55,000 for that. $80,000 going to Housing Assistance Corporation, and you know, so there was a lot of the stuff that we had advocated for made it through the budget process.
Right, and I know the town's very, very grateful, especially for that youth summit. It's a little scary when you lose your funding and not quite sure how to manage that really fantastic event for all the 7th graders in the town of Barnstable to learn about substance abuse and peer pressure.
Yeah, it's a great event. I go every single year. It's really enjoyable, and it's informative too. And I think the kids get something out of it.
Right, and this the community service officers as well. I mean, we see their fluorescent shirts walking the beat every single day, and that's just a great addition to downtown.
They are a tremendous addition. They're a great source of information and just eyes and ears on Main Street for the police department.
Right. So where are we with Nero's bill? I know that one's near and dear to your heart. That's a bill you filed.
Yep. Back in July, we had our July 18th. We had a hearing on that, and it was a very interesting hearing because we brought up 3 police canine officers and their dogs. We brought up chiefs of police, EMTs, paramedics. We had about 24 people come up to testify, including dog lovers. People from the American Kennel Club were there as well to come up and testify on that. And I'm pretty sure that I don't think any of the hearings have ever had three canine dogs in there. Just, you know, so I told the committee chair before we were having a meeting. I said this hearing is going to be a little bit different from what we've seen before, and we brought in the officers and they testified, and you know, I've got a real positive outlook that's going to be reported out of committee, which is the hearing on which is the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, and then we'll you know, once it gets reported favorably out of that committee, then move it on through the legislative process, just like everything else.
Right, and if you know Officer Fullman and his canine Vonnie,
Vonnie,
there is no way that you can say no to that puppy.
She was absolutely the hit of the project and of the whole hearing. And
Right.
as a matter of fact, the Gannons were there, Patrick and Denise were there, and Vonnie never left their side.
Yeah, no, fantastic dog. And again, what a great way to make sure that if they are hurt in their line of duty, just like any other officer, that they're taken care of.
Yep, that's what the police feel. I mean, that's what they were talking about in front of the committee, is that they need to be treated the same way an online human officer needs to be treated.
Right. Fantastic. What else do you have?
Well, the Vineyard Wind easement for the town of Barnstable was signed not too long ago by the governor into law, so that means that the town of Barnstable can now proceed with the Vineyard Wind as far as the town's part of the process is concerned, which allows Vineyard Wind to be able to bring their cables ashore at Colville's Beach, to go through, they have an easement now to be able to go through the parking lot, to be able to dig that up and obviously fix it when they're finished, and then attach onto the projects once they get out to Craigville Beach Road. So as long as they can get through their processes with the federal government, and there's still some things that need to be fixed and tied up there, this process can really start to amp up now. And over the life of the project, we're talking about anywhere from $14 to $30 million for the town.
Right.
As part of the host agreement.
And just as a kind of a clarification here, is the piece, like everything statewide now has been done, and it's really literally now in the federal hands?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
the Bureau of Ocean Management. It still has some questions, still some things that are still outstanding, and the governor was down not too long ago to talk to them, and just we'll continue to work with the federal delegation to be able to make sure that this all gets wrapped up really quickly, and get it rolling along.
Excellent. So recess for August and back in session in September?
In September, yep.
Fantastic. You're going to have a wonderful summer?
Interesting, because actually I'll be laid up for most of the month of August because I'm getting a knee replacement.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, you'll maybe be laid up on the beach. How's that?
Well, that will work. That'll work.
Excellent. Well, hopefully a speedy and healthy recovery for you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Larry Daxus, entomologist for Barnstable County, says tick season starts on January 1st and ends December 31st, which means those nasty critters and the scary diseases they carry are around all year long. Protect yourself, your family, and pets by following Larry's advice for tick prevention. We're out in the field, literally today, with Larry Daxus, County Extension entomologist. Larry, it is tick season, and they are exploding everywhere this year. Lots of rain brought them out.
Well, tick season actually started January 1st, and it's going to go till December 31st and pick up again January 1st. But you're right, with all the rain that we've had recently, that just creates the environmental conditions that ticks can be in places you wouldn't normally find them, and they're active for longer periods of time. So it increases the chances that you're going to bump into one of these little landmines.
So you have a couple of those little landmines with you today, and they're minuscule, really small.
Well, these are adult stage ticks that I picked up in about 60 seconds of dragging a piece of white flannel on the ground. So I've got 2 adult males and 2 adult females, and you can see they're about the size of a sesame seed.
Right.
But we're in a transition stage right now because what's about to start coming out are the nymph stage of this tick.
Oh my gosh, you can't really even see them. They're extremely small, like a grain of sand.
They're the size of a poppy seed, and they'll be with us about now until early August. And the significance of this is that it's so small, it can elude a tick check. So this stage is responsible for 85% of all tick-borne diseases.
So those little things bite.
They do. They have 8 legs, an attitude, and can put you on your behind in a heartbeat.
Wow. So there's some things out there that folks really have to be aware of to protect themselves, their families, their pets.
Sure.
Let's talk about those today.
Sure. Well, the other thing is that the headline here, it's not just about Lyme disease anymore. We're up to 5 different pathogens that this particular species of tick can vector and make you sick. And last year in our surveillance work, we found 13% of the ticks on Cape Cod were co-infected, meaning they're carrying 2, 3, or even 4 pathogens.
And those are some of those real scary big words, powassan and
Babesiosis,
right?
yeah, all of them. So they're all quite serious and can be serious. So let's talk about the 3 Ps.
Right.
The way we run this program is protect yourself, protect your yard, and protect your pets. So first and foremost, for self-protection, I talk about repellents as a first-line defense.
Right.
So we've got the standard products that people are familiar with, things like DEET, 30% DEET, but that's for exposed skin.
Okay.
So the tick won't bite you where that DEET is, but it might just keep marching along until it finds a place where there's no DEET.
Right.
For me, the top repellent on the books contains the active ingredient permethrin. And this is for treating clothing and footwear. And what I found in my research on this is that if a tick is exposed for 60 seconds, it's guaranteed to die in about 10 minutes.
Wow.
So it works like a charm. So you treat your footwear about every 4 weeks, and if you treat your clothing, it'll keep its activity through 6 washings or 45 days. Or you can get pre-treated clothing from a company, principally Insect Shield, and 70 washings claim, the life of the garment.
Wow.
And since I've been starting this regimen 7 years ago now, I've not received a single tick bite. And I went out looking for them.
Right. So I think so say the name again. It's permethrin.
Permethrin is the active ingredient. So you have a number of brands. So this one happens to be Sawyer.
Right.
This is Ben's. You can get it now all the major garden centers on the Cape and some of the box stores like Home Depot. But and the safety margin on this product is huge. This is the active ingredient that you would slather on an infant for scabies mite at a much higher concentration. So chemically, it's the perfect chemical for our particular application.
Okay. And then we talk about the yard as well. So, people are out there, we've got gorgeous weather, starting to really get out there and do that yard work.
Exactly.
And those ticks live in your yard whether you have manicured grass or not, right?
We don't have to go into that tree line over there to get ticks. In fact, surveillance research in Connecticut showed that 2/3 of the people that submitted ticks for identification and testing got them from their own backyard. So ticks and gardening go hand in hand. Right. So as a 1-2 punch, besides the treated clothing and footwear, I recommend a perimeter yard spray. There are commercial companies that use a product like permethrin, Talstar. And so on our website, we've got the timings and of when you would put those 2 spring sprays on, mid-May, mid-June, and that'll cover that nymph stage window of activity.
Right, the ones that you can't see that really literally will bite and you never even knew that you get bit.
Yeah, so you need to do tick checks anyway, and the places you would look is where your clothing becomes restrictive. So like behind your knees, your pelvic area, your armpit, your hairline, around your neck. That's where you're most likely to find the ticks.
Okay. Having been bit and having had Lyme disease, I think perhaps maybe from our dogs, pick up ticks all the time. We've got a couple of products here, the Advantix collars for dogs. But
Sure. There's a number of topicals like Canine Advantix 2. You have to pay attention to what products you can use on a dog versus a cat. This one you cannot use on cats. They're sensitive to permethrin. But the monthly topicals, some people find they get old after a while. Did I do it? Do I feel like doing it? And a company came out with a collar a few years ago called Seresto with an S. You put that on your animal, you get 8 months of continuous flea and tick control. So the pets are covered, in fact, in some ways better than people because there's a vaccine available for dogs for Lyme disease.
Correct. Yep. Absolutely, and I think what a lot of people don't understand is that, even if you think it's just a dog tick, they're picking up these little nymph things you don't even see on their fur and on their skin. So, if you're snuggling with them on the couch or something like that, you really have to be aware that you need a product on them that's going to kill them in that small stage as well.
Exactly, and if the tick falls off the animal for whatever reason, once that happens, it's going to die fairly shortly because ambient humidity inside a house isn't that high.
Right. Excellent. Well, Larry, what other things can you tell folks? We just need to protect ourselves. We need to be smart.
We need to be tick safe. I tell people that don't be afraid of your environment because there are people that don't want to go outside anymore. Don't fear your environment, but understand your environment.
Right. Thank you so much, Larry. Up next, things to do, places to go, and people to meet. The Barnstable Adult Day program is designed to meet the needs of older adults who are no longer able or do not wish to remain home alone during the day. The program provides a safe, comfortable environment which allows them to maintain their independence and remain active while building friendships. Engaging in beneficial sensory and physical activities in contributing to the community. Free trial days are available at the Barnstable Adult Community Center. For more information, call Donna Burns at 508-862-4765. Comments, suggestions, accolades, connect with us on Facebook, email us, or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works. For you, I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.